an external source, your MP3.
Be covering a host of issues this hour, a little bit into the next hour, with Texe Marrs and Michael Hoffman, historian, former AP writer, is going to be with us for 2 hours. So we're going to go into overdrive today with Mr. Hoffman because I'm going to have Texe a little bit in the next hour, and then I'm going to spend a few minutes with the latest developments on the Deborah Jean Palfrey case. But Texe Marrs is here to talk about a host of issues. Multi-time New York Times bestselling author, Air Force officer, of course, space and aeronautics professor. He married my wife and I, and Wanda, his wife, is such a sweetheart, and good family friends. I just, time flies though. We used to, have dinner every once in a while and stuff. Now we're so busy we hardly ever see each other. We got to make time to do that. But I really appreciate Texe Marrs coming in the studio.
Hey, Alex, great to be with you again. And since I saw you last, it seems like the elite have ratcheted up their efforts at control of the people. And I'm so amazed at their ability to do that. And yet I believe it's because of the psychological control. I actually call it a magic type of alchemy. And I'm also delighted to see your organization here, because you have people here that really care. And I want to say something before we begin. I want to mention that I knew you before you were nationwide. And I'll never forget the first time I saw you on television, cable access. Now, I want people to understand something, Alex. You volunteered to go down to Austin Cable Access. You became the #1 program on Austin Cable Access, which was very well watched, I might add. I watched you for the first time. A friend mentioned this, Alex Jones. You weren't getting paid a cent for this. You weren't in it for the money. If anybody believes that, that's nonsense. I saw you. Wanda was sitting by me. And I said, do you know why that man is going to succeed in riling up the establishment? He's exposing the evil doing in this world. And I'll tell you why he's going to succeed. Now, I've mentioned this to you before, but I want the audience to know. 3 words, okay? 3 words. A passion for truth. I guess that's 4 if you count the A. Passion for truth. I saw that in you. Of course, there were other things. Intelligence. The fact that you're willing to dig in to find out the information, the truth. And you're able to articulate it. But more than anything, the passion for truth. That has not left you. I'll tell you, I've seen every one of your videos. I saw your book.
You're too nice. Most of the time I can't even watch myself.
Well, and when you do that, though, you're going to have enemies.
Oh, I've got plenty.
Oh, yeah. Because passion for truth drives up those who want to reject the truth, who want to avoid it. So I thought I'd just add that.
Well, Texe, let me just, please don't make it about me. I'm just an average person who's upset about what's happening, and I'm pretty obnoxious, but I've gotten a little bit better over time. But I have to add, I learned more from Texe Marrs than anybody else. I remember seeing people air your documentaries, your presentations in like 1992, 93. On Access Television, when you were, just exposing the Clintons and the New World Order and just starting to write books about that subject. And, then Oklahoma City happened, and I saw you talking about that in 95, and that's right when I got on air. And of course, think how many people you've also woken up other than me, and think of all the other people I've woken up and all our listeners have woken up. That's what's so beautiful about this. But as you said, evil, Katie Bar the door, realizes we're breaking in on them, so they're throwing everything they've got now. And just overall with the whole world.
They have no shame. And now they have no fear of the people. The only ones they fear are the listeners of the Alex Jones show. The very few, because your listeners also, and I get emails from them all the time, they too have a passion for truth. Alex, one of the things I would really like to hit today, the main subject, is something that is so amazing that's going on. I believe they've gone a little bit beyond the police state. The police state is the umbrella, the taking away of our constitutional rights, of course, and the Bill of Rights, the stripping of those rights. But now they are creating, and I want the people to understand this, it is so important, the elite are creating a new reality. A new reality. This is a psychological battering of the public. Now, we've already had, of course, 9/11 and the terrorist scare, the fear-mongering. But, and this gets to people's basic needs of survival, of security, of safety. And they're using this against us. But wait, now they're ratcheting it up. Not only are they engendering, instilling fear for our security, our safety, but now food, water, oil, which is the wellspring of our entire economy. These three resources, oil, water, food, they have decided to batter us into submission through these three key resources. Oil is everything for the economy. It means everything for people's pocketbooks. It means impoverishment as the price of oil escalates and goes skyward. Then there's food. If people can't eat, they can do nothing. You'll remember Abraham Maslow back in the 60s developed this concept, which is true, has been confirmed over and over. When people are worried, concerned, frightened over their basic needs, I'm talking about food, I'm talking about water, okay, and their ability to live a decent lifestyle, okay, shelter and so forth. When those needs are not met, they don't worry about abstract things like liberty and freedom.
They do whatever the establishment says if they've been domesticated, so that they can, quote, get that standard back. What they don't know is this is the same elite that has engineered all this. And what you're saying, Tex, and I want to see you flesh this out because you wrote a book about it years ago, is what the United Nations said they do in the 60s in the Club of Rome. And now they've just republished the head of the CFR, Richard N. Haas's quote. I've been reading a lot on air. I'm sure you've seen it, where he says, we're going to have a twin rail. This is in 93. He said we're going to have terrorism, which we threaten them with to give up their rights, but then we're also going to have the global carbon tax in the name of saving the earth to regulate and bring in neo-feudalism. And he said, this is a quote, this makes humanity the enemy, and then we can direct the state against the enemy.
Now, that's a key. That's a key. Humanity is the enemy. You see, here's the new reality. It's a contrived hoax, just as 9/11 was, just as the Oklahoma City bombing was, just as Al-Qaeda is a contrived hoax. Now we have a contrived hoax of resources. It's
artificial scarcity.
Absolutely. The lie is we're going into, now listen to this, an age of scarcity. And because of that, we all have to be good soldiers and agree to share with the rest of the world. We have to share our water. We have to share our food, and we have to.
We're not going to share, but we're not going to share with the people. No, they claim there's a middleman called the New World Order.
Oh, absolutely. Well, they're getting enriched by all this, and if the price of gasoline at the pump goes to $10 a gallon, quit your belly aching, man. I mean, we're doing you a favor, even letting you drive a car. I mean, we're helping you. You don't really deserve this. I mean, there's a scarcity of oil.
And it's because of peak oil. And then they can also blame Alaska and point at a few hippies they finance as NGOs when we've had all the oil company executives on, more oil than Saudi Arabia, and the government isn't going to let it out of the ground. Oh, but hippies are stopping them from getting it.
Well, yeah, we haven't had for example, in the oil area, we haven't had a new refinery built since the 1970s. They blame it on the environmental movement, but wait, who actually founded and sponsor today these environmental organizations?
The oil companies.
Sierra, Nature Conservancy. Sure, the mass of their money doesn't come from the unwashed hippies.
Rockefellers founded it.
Absolutely.
And we got the oil company documents in 2001, Associated Press did, where they said in 95 in a consortium meeting, the Big Ten, they said Exxon, Mobil, all of them, before they'd merged, they said, we are going to buy up these 214 refineries and shut them down to create an artificial bottleneck.
Yeah, these are artificial hoaxes. Now, then they have the media to control this. And then comes the idea of peak oil. Now, you know, I come from East Texas. My brother was a high-level executive in Sun Oil Company. And he used to sit around with me. We used to talk about this. Listen, back in Port Neches, Texas.
So was my grandmother.
Is that right?
Yeah, my great-grandpa worked for Sun Oil.
And back in the 70s, you know, when we had the first big energy crisis with Nixon in office, and there were lines at the gas pump at the service stations miles long, my brother was just shocked about this because, remember, he was with Sun Oil. He was able to see the figures of what their inventories were. He says the United States is brimming with oil. There's no cutoff from the Middle East, brimming with oil. And the tankers continued to come in, but it wasn't being refined because they had decided it's time to drive up the price. Now we know that Kissinger agreed with the Shah of Iran and others to allow the price of oil to escalate.
That's now public.
And now we're seeing the same thing
called
now.
a conspiracy theory in the 70s.
Yeah. And here's an interesting thing, too. Even at this time, 30 years ago, my brother told me something interesting. He said the oil fields, the oil wells that we first drilled and thought we'd brought all the oil out of the ground from, and then we capped them. They put all the concrete and close them back up. We're going, it's Sun Oil, I'm sure this is true of every oil company, we're going back now 20, 30 years later, uncapping them, and guess what? We find they're full of oil again.
It just comes back.
It replenishes. It percolates up from the earth. There's processes going on.
And there's hundreds of top
Earth.
Universities are proving that it is not dead dinosaurs.
No, that's silly. Fossils.
Again, more and more fraud.
Fossil oil. Yeah, that's sort of silly stuff. I think this all came about at the turn of the century. Rockefeller, with his Standard Oil Company, had a monopoly that was broken up, supposedly, by the U.S. Supreme Court.
Yeah, 1906, and it was just in the news the other day, they came back and they admitted the family owns the company, and they're about to fire Rex Tillerson because he won't go along with global warming.
Well, of course, global warming is another scam that they have. Now, back to this fossil fuel, so-called. The very idea of it. Hey, oil is dead dinosaurs that have decomposed in the earth. That's our oil. When you run out of dead dinosaurs, you run out of oil. That's the claim. It's so silly, people don't really think about it. Here's where this came up. Around the Los Angeles area, they had the oil tar pits. And, of course, being gooey and sticky, there were a certain number of animals, even back in prehistoric times, that got into the oil tar pit, and guess what? They couldn't get out, and they died there. They found their remains. This caused many people to say, hey, that must be where the oil came from.
Exactly.
Uneducated people.
Stay there. Texe Marrs. We're going to be right back after break. For PrisonPlanet.tv viewers, we're going to have some behind the scenes right now. Tex, we got 4 minutes in this break. I don't want to waste any of this time. Let's come back to the tar pits on the other side with folks.
Okay.
But this will be on the web and is on the web right now live, but archived on the web forever. Before we go any further, on other subjects, what do you think about Deborah Jean Palfrey? We interviewed her.
Okay.
She said, I'll never commit suicide. If they say I do, it's not true. Then they have this weird government debunker who comes out and says JFK, RFK, the official story's true. Vince Foster wasn't suicided. He says she just called him up and said, I'm going to kill myself. No tape. We have a tape from a month and a half ago.
It wasn't Posner, was it?
No, it's another one of them.
Another one. Okay. All right. I haven't heard of this morning's news. But quite obvious, the gal is a very confident person. She may have spent a little prison time, or may have had to, but she wasn't going to kill herself. You could look at the person and see the personality type does not kill himself.
Tough as nails.
Tough as nails. Absolutely. Here's a gal that ran a pretty shrewd operation. I'm not talking about the morality of it. I'm talking about the organizational skills and management. No, so, yeah, we can talk about that. There's no way she killed herself.
Well, let's spend a few minutes on that right now.
Okay.
What's your take on it?
Are we on the air?
Yeah, well, see, what I do is I do the main radio show, and now because we're doing this as a webcast,
oh, okay,
we just go into overdrive.
Oh,
here.
Wonderful. I like it even more. Okay. Well, my take on it is frankly that there were names. You remember that the court ordered those names to be sealed. But here's a gal who went on to prison, and I'm sure her lawyer says shut up now. But once she did her little prison term of 6 months or 9 months or whatever, she was denuded of her money, right? She needs to make money. She's going to you guessed right. That she's
just
going to write a tell-all book.
She was planning a book.
Yeah, she's and maybe do a little prison time. Once she gets out, she gets a ghostwriter, does a tell-all book, and she becomes a millionaire. Why does she want to kill herself? She was in the business of prostitution to make money.
I didn't think of that. That's a key.
She had a big future ahead of her.
I mean, I thought about him killing her for the book she was planning to do, which was admitted, but I didn't think of the fact that's even more of a reason not to commit suicide.
Oh.
She's got a book that's going to make $10 million.
Harper and Row, Simon and Schuster are slobbering at the mouth to get this gal to write a book on this. And of course, the bigwigs, the elite, and who knows the names? Congressmen, senators.
Well, the MO is it's Cheney and McCain. Well, and we know from their sexual
they're perverted. They're perverted.
They're the
people.
few that actually like women. We know it's mainly a homosexual guilt.
I shouldn't say this, but even look at Cheney's wife, Lynn Cheney. She wrote a lesbian sex novel. Maybe she was being serviced by these prostitutes. Might have been a family thing with the Cheneys. Horrible there. But the poor lady, you look at her, you know she's not the psychological type. I don't want to say I know everything about psychology, but I did teach abnormal psychology and adult psychology at university
Well, she told
level.
me she was
so
never going to do
it. She's no crazy person that's going to kill herself. She may be an immoral person, but even more the reason why she was looking forward to enriching herself. She had a gold mine here, just like the little gal did that was exposed to the prostitute for Elliot Spitzer.
Well, then on top of it, we also have how this all started. The Brittany Britton, which was this getting her PhD, but she was also already a professor, and she magically hangs herself when she was facing 6 months in jail for a prostitution bust, but she shot her mouth off. She said, "This is hypocritical." She said, "I'm going to name names." Boom, hangs herself, and then that's when they go bust her to bring her into the system and discredit her boss Palfrey.
Yeah,
and then now she hangs herself.
And this guy, a totally disreputable source in my opinion, says, "Oh, she called me. She told me she was going to do it."
But we have the tape. He doesn't.
Yeah, well, he doesn't have a tape. But even if he did, the ability to manufacture voice through voice synthesization is so incredible today.
Dan Moldia, and I mean, this guy pops up on everything. He just everywhere. Okay, we're going to go back on the network right now. Here we go. Welcome back, Genesis listeners. Say hi to all the PresentPlanet.tv viewers. We have Texe Marrs here in studio with us, going back into oil, shifting gears back into that. They came out, 150 years ago when they first discovered oil, and we're looking at coal. There is some small deposits where you find the imprints of ferns. There's very small amounts of coal that they found in association. As you said, they found tar pits in Africa, the U.S. I've seen the history, and they said, the juice from these animals made this. Of course, now they admit the La Brea tar pits was them getting caught up in it, and animals dying in it. So continue with this system.
Well, first of all, we need to understand something. We're being attacked. Our minds are being attacked. We're being told to accept a new reality, that we're going to have to accept being a third world impoverished nation, that we're going to have to accept food prices doubling, tripling. We're going to have to accept the fact that our water is going to be controlled from now on, and the price of that is going to go up dramatically. This age of scarcity, this new reality, this is what we have to watch out for. Now, how do we fight back? First of all, we have to understand the truth, which is, for 200 years, America has been the land of plenty, and we have plenty. This planet is awash with oil. Once we understand that water is incredible. Most of the world's surface
They're now saying
has water.
They're now saying water isn't renewable. They're teaching school children that.
Well, and the reason why, let's go back to the water. We'll go around and round up all of these three key resources in this so-called age of scarcity. Remember, billionaires like T. Boone Pickens from Oklahoma, he has bought up the water rights in West Texas for about 3 states, underground the water rights. He's going to build pipelines, just like oil pipelines. And water is going to cost more than oil within a decade. That's their plan.
The UN has said it 30 years ago. Again, a key point here for everybody to understand, to totally back up what you're saying, Tex. I remember not just reading Club of Rome documents and all of this. They go back 40 years, 30 years where they admit all this. I remember on NPR and on PBS shows and Charlie Rose, they would say the New World Order would be built on shortage. When he'd have Kissinger on, would be built on oil, water, timber, everything. And of course, they get to tax us now on what humans put off, carbon dioxide, saying it's a deadly poison when it's one of the 4, life-giving building blocks: water, sun, carbon dioxide, oxygen on this planet. But I've heard him on NPR go, Americans are soon going to have our standard of living taken. We deserve it. It's like a little liberal sacrament. Oh, we're going to pay now. They admit it's a scam. I mean, they are just, go ahead, Tex.
Well, back to this water. Not only T. Boone Pickens, there are many more. For example, Maurice Strong. He's a Canadian, but he comes down to Colorado with his wife, Hannah. The first thing he does, this rich Illuminati,
he's admittedly into the occult.
Oh, absolutely. Well, he builds a temple to the occult. A New Age temple there in the Baca Grande area of Colorado. Remember now, he's a rich, fabulously rich Canadian. But there he is in Colorado. Why? Because he bought up, for a song, the water rights to Colorado, Nevada, Arizona, because of this Baca Grande, trillions of barrels of water.
And by the way, governments
underground.
aren't allowed to sell the aquifers, but they do.
Oh, yeah. Now,
and that's why they're now saying you can't drill a well, you can't have your own water. Go ahead.
Oh, absolutely. They're going to control us, and they're going to watch people that now have wells that live out in the country.
There's 2 million cops.
They're going to be metered.
They're talking about 3 million enviro cops without warrants, just everywhere spying. Go ahead.
Well, the satellites are watching too.
Yeah, that's right.
The satellites are watching too.
The military
don't
satellites.
Don't drill your own well, but they'll be watching.
No, they admitted now that and local police are going to have it too.
Now, the interesting thing about Maurice Strong, for example, and I talk about him quite a bit in my book, Circle of Intrigue, the hidden inner circle of the global Illuminati conspiracy. Strong was the head at the time when he bought up these water rights here in the United States, head of the United Nations Environmental Program. Then he went back up to Canada, and he bought into Hydro-Canada. Now he owns most of the water rights of the Canadian people. Now, the reason why they did this, why they bought up all these water rights, all these aquifers, very slowly, very quietly over the last 2 decades, they are now going to drive up the price of water to unbelievable levels. It's going to be such a precious resource, and they're going to watch every little drop. Forget about your lawns. Forget about your home gardens. And people who live out in the country that have their own wells, they're going to have to put meters on them. They're going to watch everything.
And this is feudalism.
It's privatization. And all of the municipal water companies have been forced to sell their operations to the rich.
Has anybody wondered why it's Dutch, German, British, Israeli? They own all the water districts now.
Oh, absolutely.
And in fact, I get the reports all the time. They'll come in and buy the city's water, pay off the politicians, and then double, triple prices overnight.
Now, the food industry is exactly the same.
We're going to come back and talk about that with Texe Marrs. And then during this break for PrisonPlanet.tv viewers or for Infowars.com internet stream listeners, we're going to go ahead and switch over to that stream right now, folks. You'll be able to hear me and Texe at the Infowars stream and continue this discussion to all our MNF affiliates. We'll be right back in 3 minutes for all of you that are out there. We're trying to stop the New World Order. Okay, Texe, we've got 3 minutes here, and I want to get more into Palfrey and what's happening. We're having 2 discussions here parallel, called the Schizophrenic Radio Show. But a lot of people are pointing out that this was the high holy day, May 1st, yesterday, and that murders always go up then, kidnappings go up in the week before, and that they always kill DC pages, and they always have weird murders and weird things that happen on that day, and they like to wait till that day. Have you found any truth to this?
Of course. The Ancient Pagans, okay, which all this is based on, this Illuminism is based on, worshipped on May Day. They had their great orgies to Bacchus and Dionysius. Now, these May Day celebrations, all right, May the 1st, you'll recall that Adam Weishaupt, who founded the Order of the Illuminati, founded it on May 1, 1776. May 1. The Communist Revolution, Lenin and Trotsky, they took over the Soviet Union in November. But when did they have their big celebrations annually with all of the tanks and the rockets going down Red Square there in Moscow? May 1.
You can have communists, you can have Google, you can have Republicans, they all celebrate May Day.
May Day.
And the dumbed down public doesn't know this is the highest holy day. Tell us.
They call it International Solidarity Day, among the unions and others. And of course, May Day is actually a satanic festival. Remember, they would also have the maypoles they would put up and have all the kids parade around. Then they would have their orgies out in the forest and so forth, worshiping Pan, the horn god of the forest. Now, let's move right up to today. We have these same celebrations of May Day going around the world, May Day. Okay, in England and France and Italy. And among the Illuminati, among the Freemasons, this is a key day.
This is bigger than Samhain.
That's why they have the Mexican illegal immigrants all go out on May Day, May 1st.
It's communist, but that's only one facet.
Yeah, and of course all of that is organized. They don't go out spontaneously.
Rob Allen and Co., the big Republican deal that admitted, funded all of this.
Yeah. So, May Day, I can see this incredible, we have Walpurgis Night, the satanic festival. April, of course, is a big month, and everything goes to a crescendo for May Day. And remember what this is. They're now forcing the harvest. That's what they believe. Through human sacrifice, they're forcing the harvest. The spring has come. The gods look upon us favorable. And now the sun is returning. And now it's possible to have the harvest. Of course, to you and I, this sounds ridiculous. All of these things, but not to them. It doesn't matter whether we think it's crazy, whether it's insane. We know it is. But listen, there are millions of people that believe in these things, and there's a small core. 5,000 to 6,000 Illuminati. And of course, those that are really in the know go into only the few hundreds.
Stay there, and there in the next break, we'll go back into that.
Of his kingdom.
We're having two parallel discussions. During the break, we're talking about why did they kill Paul Free on May Day, the high holy occult day. And then it got into environmentalism and how they believe it's earth worship, sun worship. And then now we see that topic, because it's all interconnected, nexusing with how they want to control the resources through feudalism because they, quote, worship the earth. But then they're the ones actually destroying the earth because they believe in this yin and yang, the Illuminati code, of they destroy and they rebuild. But in their own stated documents, it's official. They say that they're going to take the water, the food, the land, the oil, jack up the prices to bring you all back to a feudal level so you can't afford to have children. And as I told you they would do, they've now proposed one-child taxes in the U.S. as it started in China, and then 7 years later, it started in the mid-'70s, and then in the early '80s became mandatory. They signed IMF World Bank deals. They signed on a State Department Memorandum 200. This is all coming. You think it's bad now with a cop on every corner? New environmental regulations, animal ID, premises ID, thousands of dollars in fines for tiny things, total control. They're flattening tires, burning down buildings now, the fake environmentalists. Soon they're going to be in uniforms. They already are. Al Gore, 10 million strong youth army in the U.S. Tex, please continue.
Well, several years ago, I wrote this book, Days of Hunger, Days of Chaos. And I want you to have a copy of it, Alex, because in this book, the subtitle, by the way, is The Coming Great Food Shortages in America. And a lot of people said, hey, this can't be. I don't believe this kind of stuff. But here's a book, over 200 pages that I wrote. This was the first book to expose Monsanto, Dow Chemical, and the others, their plans for the Terminator gene to be implanted in the seeds.
You wrote this 9 years ago, I remember.
Absolutely. And people couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe that the Terminator seeds would be
But you saw their own documents, and you knew that they planned to create this artificial. Go ahead.
Oh, absolutely. Now, think of this. Maria Bertini, I quote her in the book. Who is Maria Bertini? She was the head of the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. There is a World Food Authority. They've already set it up. Okay, at the United Nations. In fact, they have erected a building, a gigantic complex in Brussels, Belgium. All right? My next newsletter, I'm going to have a picture of that building. Hey, it seems to be 10 times as big as the United States Capitol. It must have thousands of bureaucrats. They are ready to go. They're going to control the world's food, including America's food.
They had that Beijing conference, 96, 97, which one? And the head of the UN Food Program said, we will use food as a weapon. We have used it as a weapon, and we do not apologize.
That was Bertini. And she said, and I want to quote her, food is power. Food is power. The head of the United Nations Food Program, with this gigantic building, they probably employ 3,000 or 4,000 bureaucrats in this one building in Brussels, Belgium, for food. And remember also the United Nations last year had a international water conference. They're warning people there are going to be wars between nations over water. Already we're seeing food riots. Everything was taking place so that they can program our minds. This is alchemical attacks, alchemical magic.
We're being taught that food and water and fuel now are these incredibly scarce commodities.
That's right.
But don't worry, government's going to help us. One child.
Oh yeah.
If there were less people, as Ted Turner's been saying,
depopulation.
They're suddenly all of the news saying if we had less people, you could have the Mercedes again.
Well, isn't it interesting that Ted Turner, who, the guy that once called Christians losers and bozos, Ted Turner, who's been favored by the Illuminati rich all his life, he says we must all have no more than one child.
He has 5.
But what? Yeah, he has 5. I'm glad you mentioned that. He has 5 himself. All of this is a setup, of course. This zero population growth, which, by the way, George Bush Sr. used to be the head of it. Rockefeller made him the head of the zero population growth organization years ago. So we have an attack on human beings, as you mentioned earlier, Alex. And these three key resources, I want to bring something to people's mind. If they're attacking our minds, what do we do to recover? What do we do? Of course, we tell the truth, but listen to this. Rather than going into this mindset, this programmed magical trance, that there is an age of scarcity, we need to strike back. And let me tell you how we can do it. We need to bring up proof, just as you and others did with 9/11. What you did, Alex, you said, we will not accept the establishment version of event. Why? Because it doesn't correlate with the truth. And then you and a few others begin to bring this incredible array of truth to the fore. Books, videos by you and others, radio programs. You have been smashing the 9/11, the establishment version, the lie. Now they've got the lie about oil shortages, oil scarcity, water scarcity, food scarcity. But as I said,
Richard N. Haas at the CFR, we can use his own quote. He said these are made up. He says it. But we're going to have terror on one part, and then we're going to have the environment on the other for scarcity to wage war on the people. And they say because when we have too much resources, we have time on our hands, we have liberty, we can politically get involved.
There you go. We go back to the basic needs. Once the basic needs are met, people look for higher abstract things, self-actualization.
That's the hierarchy of needs.
That's the hierarchy of needs. And people then say, wow, we want liberty, we want freedom, but they're willing to give up their liberty and freedom if they need to eat, if they're thirsty, if they're worried about how they're going to afford a home for their family because of the oil prices going up and smashing the economy. What we need to do is show that these are lies. There is no age of scarcity. The world is awash in petroleum. And the rest of this program, it's a cornucopia. And I want to prove that. I've got just some news items. If we just do basic research, we're going to find there's oil coming out of the, to use the old saying, out of the world's ears.
Well, I want to be clear.
This is Planet Petroleum.
I want to be clear. I have family, I don't myself, that has some nice oil in Texas, in East Texas. And, they don't like all the lies, even though it's making them make more money. I mean, I'm telling you, as somebody, somebody whose family's worked as petroleum geologists, worked in oil companies, worked as plant heads, worked as roughnecks, the whole lease hounds. We're Texans. Are your family's in it? I'm in it. In East Texas, where my family's from, almost everybody's got an oil well. They call it mailbox money.
Well, we wake up in the morning, we smell oil where I came from in Fort Angels, Texas.
Exactly. But the point is that everywhere they drill, it comes. I mean, just shooting out natural gas, helium.
And the people's backyards. In some places around Kilgore and other places in Texas.
It's ridiculous. And it's from Illinois to Oklahoma to Al Gore owns big oil fields in L.A.
Well,
he owns those.
Here's the thing about Al Gore we have to understand. Remember what we said, that the oil companies founded, and sponsor the environmental organizations so that the environmental organizations can create the pretext of scarcity. We would love to build new refineries, but we can't because of the environmentalists. We would love to go into the ocean, the offshore areas off of California and Oregon and over on the Atlantic side, but the environmentalists won't let us.
And then Schumer gets on TV and says, we would have a 1 cent decrease in 20 years, when I've had the executives on who were there, and they admit that on one North Shore, there's almost as much as there is in Saudi Arabia. There's more in the whole area, and it's almost sweet crude shooting out, and they could put in 5 new pipelines in a year. They will not do it.
Absolutely. Now, why would Al Gore promote this global warming? Why would he promote environmentalism? Why would he become the new guru?
They'd rather have a monopoly than a free market.
Prize. Well, not only that, remember the Gore family, Albert Gore Sr. and now Albert Gore Jr., they are shills for Occidental Petroleum. Armand Hammer funded him. I mean, I can show you pictures of them sitting around the swimming pool together.
He is the majority owner. I remember that when his dad died, and then seeing press reports years ago, the former Senator Gore, that Al Gore now owned the controlling stock in Occidental.
So he's an oil man, just like Bush with Harkin Oil and the others. He's an oil man. Cheney with Halliburton Oil Servicing Company. We have oil men. Al Gore is an oil man. He was brought up in oil. oil. His father was a paid shill for Occidental Petroleum, which was owned, by the way, by and this is really an oxymoron, a communist capitalist, Armand Hammer, that every year ran back and forth to visit with the...
But as Carol Quigley said...
Pope Fubas of communist Russia.
They want monopolies to deal with, so they help put the communists in.
Well, Al Gore now is going to become a billionaire. He recently became one of the principals of a corporation worth $683 million, I believe.
And they trade in the energy stocks.
Yeah,
the energy
absolutely. But remember, the important thing is they must create this scarcity that they're lying about. And the only way they can create it is by bottling up all the world's oil, all the world's water, all the world's resources, including the food. That's why the agribusiness corporations, Willie Nelson has done a great thing to help the little farmers, but they only are producing a small percentage of the food. It's the agribusiness corporations. They own the food supplies. Since they've moved
in now, what was it, 50 years ago, they said we could supply the world 3.5 times over with what we had currently. Now we are bringing 30+% of our food in.
There is so much food. Listen, the warehouses are bursting at the seams with food now around the world. You know, when I was a young man...
They've been speculating and hoarding and waiting to sell.
Well, of course, the commodity speculators, they are the speculators. If they drive up the price of wheat 67%, they're the ones that own all the futures and the futures markets. Chicago is the world's leader, the commodities
they're
markets
holding on
in Chicago,
to it,
Illinois.
Exactly. They're holding on to it to drive it up. Explain how that works.
Well, first of all, they buy a futures, okay, which is really a bet. It's a Las Vegas bet saying that food prices will go up. And when they go up, they make billions of dollars. If the food prices don't go up, they don't make their billions.
And so by holding the food, just like the oil, they guarantee and rig the future.
To create scarcity. They can, for example, claim, because remember now, they're the agribusiness corporations, they can claim there's a blight on wheat. And the wheat supply is ruined. They can claim that the winter frost killed the coffee down South America.
They can also blame it, and I've actually looked at these numbers now. They can also blame it on the ethanol when that's a tiny fraction of it, which the Saudis want shut down.
Well, and of course, ethanol is a silly thing because the world is awash in petroleum.
It is silly, but they don't like it.
Now, I want to prove our point on this Planet Petroleum, because a lot of people out there say, I've heard so much about peak oil. Surely we are running out of oil. Now, first I want to mention that I began reading about peak oil back in the 1960s. And I would read articles. Now, my dad also worked at an oil refinery, and we would get all these oil and gas industry publications in. I would read them, and there would be fear articles. For example, I remember specifically when I was a senior in high school, 1961, I read this article that really shook me up. Here I was a 17-year-old kid, and what did it say? The world was running out of oil, and by 1980, there would be no more oil left in the world. By 1980.
Yes, and we'd have an ice age, too.
Yeah, and they keep moving up the date, of when the oil is going to run out.
Like they say that we're about to have 10 years of super cooling, but that's the global warming coming.
Well, Alex, first of all, no one has ever looked at, if it were true, I wish global warming was a fact, and let me tell you why.
The Hibernian maxim makes it up.
Yeah, it does. And farmers could plant more crops. There would be more food. It would be a green world if we had global warming because the frost wouldn't come and kill off things.
They'd have vineyards again in London.
Absolutely. And if the Arctic ice melted, guess what? We could take those icebergs as they're breaking off, bring them, and that would be the water source.
Well, Texe,
wow.
Exactly.
But wait, they could, bring those around, pull them around, and you would have billions, trillions of barrels of water. But wait, then you could get through the permafrost, which wouldn't exist anymore, and all of the oil in the Arctic. Can you imagine? We would really be awash in oil. Let's have global warming. But listen, there is, unfortunately, there is no global warming because, as you well know, you're a researcher, the world's 4 top weather tracking organizations now say we are going into a global cooling period.
Because the sun had heated up briefly, now it's cooled.
Yeah,
and the entire solar system's moons.
A natural cyclical thing.
Well, take Mars' ice cap was receding, And now it's getting bigger again. That just started, and they have exact measurements with the satellites. But I had David Rothschild on, and he just said, "Nope, there's no ice caps." And we confronted Robert Kennedy Jr. He said, "There's no ice caps on the Mars. Everybody knows that." And then he went on to say, Rothschild, that Jupiter and Saturn are closer to the sun than Earth.
Well, in Minnesota, you go up to Duluth, Minnesota. And I'll tell you, in the wintertime, there's plenty of ice and snow. Okay. I love the people in Minnesota. I don't want to live there. But you know what? You go there in summertime, and it actually gets pretty hot there. There is no ice in the summer in Minnesota. Does that mean we're in global warming? No, it means we've gone into a new season. It's summertime. Here's the idiocy.
They also fearmonger every summer. In the middle of August, they'll be saying record heat. And I'm going, wait a minute, I grew up in Dallas. I remember 115 days. I remember a red sun. I remember the grass all dead. And they're telling me in Texas at 105, some deadly super wave. I have seen the mercury in 115 for a month straight.
The Al Gores of this world cannot wait for June, July, and August to get here when the temperature naturally every summer goes up, and then they can say global warming.
Psychology.
Yeah.
Well, here's an example. Yeah. If you give people the scientific name for water, they will say ban it. Or you tell them sodium chloride. Should we make kids eat sodium chloride? Oh, no, ban it. It's salt.
It's bad for them. Of course, if they didn't have sodium chloride, people would die. They've got to have a certain
that's my point. Texture's so right. But going back to satellites, they have now said 5 years ago, we're going to have the spy satellites watch farmers, make sure you're not planting trees in environmental areas, make sure you're not cutting down things. They're now saying they want to cut down trees because they also put out carbon dioxide. That was the new thing, that now trees are bad. And I mean, that was yesterday in the news.
They're actually haters of nature. They are. They're haters of nature.
Now, let's be clear.
They claim to be lovers, but they are haters.
They claim they want to save the earth, but that was my next point. Why do they really love to hurt it?
Well, around Chicago, Illinois, when the old Horace Greeley saying, "Go west, young man, go west." Well, many people moved to Illinois in the United States and settled around there. At that time, they didn't have any trees. They brought trees from the east. They planted them, and then, of course, the seeds went through there.
That's why there's more trees now than there were.
Yeah. There's more trees in America than there were 100 years ago. It's more green than it was. Interestingly enough, though, environmental organizations in Illinois are now demanding, they have actually counted, they say, the trees in suburban Illinois, Chicago. They say there are 80,000 trees, and they're demanding those trees be cut down. They want to cut down all the 80,000 trees. Why? They say, well, originally Illinois was a plain state, and it had all these grasses.
That's
we want to return to the native grasses.
Yeah. Your new trees are an invasive species.
Yeah.
But see, that's it.
Well, they're beautiful trees, and thankfully.
They make you do asinine things because they know psychologically, as a psychology professor, if they can make you do something stupid, they can make you do anything else they want.
Yes. Now, if it's true that Illinois once was grassland, and they want to cut down all the trees and return to grassland, but at one time was not Illinois ice covered?
Yes.
Why don't we return to the ice then?
At one time it was.
What historical point do we go back to?
But at one point it was an inland sea.
There was an inland sea. Well, of course, all of these things are a means of mind control, of causing radical transformation in society, just like this new reality, this age of scarcity. Now, what I would really like is to give some evidence of how we are awash in petroleum, Alex.
Okay, Tex, stay there.
People need to have the tools and the ammunition to use.
Stay there. I want to come back during this break. If people are watching on PrisonPlanet.tv, or if people are listening on the Infowars.com streams, you'll be able to hear me and Tex talk about another subject. We're going to come back and finish up with that. Texe Marrs in studio with us. Absolutely amazing. We'll be right back. Okay, Tex, we have a new development? Come on. I normally handle business during the breaks here. Tex, we just absolutely rampage here nonstop. Okay, thank you. Oh, my gosh. We just found D.C. Madam. I'd never want my life to end in suicide. More of that coming out. Thank you very much, Aaron. Tex, I want to keep you, if we can, about 15 minutes to the next hour, or were you and Wanda planning something?
we're planning to be right here with you. Whatever we need to do, because this is too important.
Okay, good. Guys, make sure you call Hoffman and make sure he knows he's coming on at 15 after next hour. Let's make deadly sure about that. Thank you.
By the way, I recommend people continue to tune in because Michael Hoffman is a source of information, a terrific researcher.
Well, we have you. We have everybody that talks about all these subjects, and then other talk show hosts that are jealous, Tex. And that's sad because we need everybody to win.
Mm-hmm.
They all freak out and claim I censor all subjects when I cover everything forever. But again, people always want to say I'm the best. I cover all the special things, but that's not true. We cover the entire spectrum. That's why we've been successful, whereas most people limit into tiny little areas.
Well, they're Johnny One Notes, and I thank God for these people that have a special knowledge in one area. But right now we're being assaulted on so many fronts.
Exactly.
We've got to keep up, and we've got to be able to defend ourselves.
You call it an alchemy?
As human beings and citizens.
I mean, it's an art form. They understand it's thousands of things they do. Go ahead.
Well, they've got the money. They've got the billions of dollars in resources to do this. Back to I have several things here, and I want us to look at. Here's from Yahoo Finance.
Well, I'll tell you what, the main stations are back in 2 minutes.
They're back in 2 minutes. We'll take that then. Okay.
So, I mean, we're just talking about, generally everything that's happening, and also want to be able to plug your free newsletter, everything else for people.
Thank you, Alex.
And, some of the newest works you've done.
Well, I really want people to get this book, Days of Hunger, Days of Chaos. They'll find out how these chemical corporations now control our seeds. They've managed to make crops. The seeds destroy themselves through science in 1 year. Each year, the seeds are destroyed, and farmers have to go back and buy the seeds from these huge corporations. At the same time, I want people to understand we're going to end up, and by the way, I'm a Christian, and even Bible prophecy says one of the four riders, the horses and the riders of the apocalypse, one of them brings famine and pestilence and death, the pale horse rider and the black horse rider. So this is even a prophetic thing that there'll be great hunger. Now here's the horror of this. It's a false hunger. There will be warehouses full of food, but people will be starving. You remember back in the 1930s Depression. I had many older people who told me that they would see the milk trucks, almost like the refrigerated milk trucks, such, and they would be throwing.
Stay there. Let's say that on the main show. Let's say that on the main show. Here we go.
Now.
Okay, we're coming back in fast here. Going to keep Tex a little bit in the next hour. He's been gracious enough to do that. TexeMarrs.com. We'll give you all the contact info, how to get his free newsletter, and a lot more in a few minutes. But before we do that, I want to be clear here. Using the satellites, having local police dial into them, spying on you, micromanaging, that federalizes the locals, violates your Fourth Amendment. You think you're under control and surveillance now. It's all going to be done under the guise of saving the Earth. Meanwhile, they're doing the genetic engineering and everything that really is hurting the Earth. So we have all of that going on. And meanwhile, you read the Monsanto documents, and they say, we're going to contaminate everything, then claim ownership of the world. This is systematic wrecking of economy, systematic destruction, artificial scarcity. Texe Marrs, please continue with all the points you were going to make about that, about the Depression, how they had the milk trucks, how they really had plenty, how they cut down on the credit, artificially did it, all the news articles. You've got the floor.
Well, it's important to understand that these are contrived chaos events. Contrived chaos. Remember, the elitist motto, even 33rd degree Freemasonry, is ordo ab chaos. Order out of chaos. They create the chaos, and now they're doing it with oil and the economy. They're doing it with food, and they're doing it with water. Not to even mention the contrived terrorism that we have today. That is the umbrella for all this. What I want people to know, though, is we can fight back. We can fight back. How do we do it? When they say that we're moving into an age of scarcity and all of our lives have to change and we have to become a third world impoverished nation and we just have to suck it up, that's just too bad. And we have to put up with $4, even $10 at the gas pump for a gallon of gasoline. We need to say no. Absolutely a lie. There is no age of scarcity. We are Planet Petroleum. We're Planet Aqua. We've got plenty. And we need to prove it, because we can prove it.
The blue planet has no water.
Well, it does have water. Of course there's water. There's water everywhere. There's always been water everywhere.
Water is deadly poison. We must tax it.
Well, yeah, there's
Just like carbon dioxide.
There's solutions that they come up with, of course. Just like in the food area. I understand that Barack Obama as a senator, introduced legislation that would tax the American people 1.5% of their income. The money would go. Again, this is a new tax levied against us. The money then, the billions that they plunder from the people, would go to the United Nations to feed the hungry of the world.
And then that means, just like Bill Gates gives $80+ billion with Warren Buffett, you hear it's to help Africans, it's to sterilize them, give them HIV. They've been caught, force them to eat GMO food, force Big Agri in. All the help they give you is really an assault. It's just like taking money from the mafia.
Oh, absolutely. John McCain, on the other hand, to show that we're not knocking any one political candidate, John McCain, on the other hand, said, hey, for this summer only, let's knock off the tax for the gasoline. That'll save everybody, $30 a month. Isn't that great? But he doesn't see any problem at all with gasoline tripling in price. He probably would not see one problem with gasoline going to $10 a gallon.
Well, that's a
and
tax.
The oil companies enriching themselves.
Well, that's a tax to the globalists right there.
Well, it is. So they see no problem with the oil company profits being at spectacular record highs and these contrived shortages.
And I remember hearing them 5 years ago on NPR, because my wife listens to it, cooking dinner. And I listen, and it's always, soon the Americans will learn. Oh, I can't wait. We're so greedy and bad. Soon, we've been living outside our means.
Oh, sure. You shouldn't be driving around those big cars and going places.
And by the way,
you should be living in those cramped cities. You should be living downtown. After all, you shouldn't. What are you doing living in the suburbs?
Smart growth. That waste. But really, it's all about control. And I know a lot of wealthy people. They say, "Oh, well, you know what? So what? I can pay $5 a gallon for gas." Yeah, but their businesses are connected to the general public who can't. This is going to hurt everybody.
I don't think that McCain or Obama or Hillary Clinton or George Bush have ever driven up to an Exxon and put gasoline in their car.
Remember George Bush Sr. doesn't
They
know.
don't do that. They drive around in limos.
He doesn't know what a grocery store scanner is.
Exactly.
We'll be right back.
It just shocked him to think the food was scanned there at the cash register.
We can keep going, Tex. Go ahead.
All right. Well, when we come back, but even now, I would like to talk about the fact that as we are being told that we have a terrific supply problem with oil and we're running out of oil. And here's a Yahoo Finance news item. It says oil futures jumped to record over $115 on supply concerns. That's what Americans are being told, Alex. But wait. Here, and this is what people don't understand. Some of the world's press doesn't lie as much as Americans do. For example, here's in the Times in London. What does it say? What does the Times newspaper say? Now, this is just as mighty a newspaper as our New York Times and Los Angeles newspaper and Chicago Tribune. It says, world not running out of oil, say experts. Hey, has George Bush told us about this? Has McCain, Obama, Hillary, have they told us that according to the London Times newspaper, the world is not running out of oil? And it says here, Alex.
Tell you what, Tex, we're going to go back live. I want you to recover those
all right
now. And there's no need for us on our streams to be cutting. We can just go straight with this.
War on Corruption. Alex Jones on the GCM.
What, is it just
Radio
hack the
Network.
daylights? Okay, good. All right, we're live, ladies and gentlemen. We're just continually live now, Tex. That's how the new show works. Here, we're going to go back up right now.
Mainstream media.
Well, one of the main things we have to understand.
In just a moment, we're going live right now.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, so does
I got to give you some headphones, Tex. That's my fault.
Alex Jones.
Texe Marrs, what a
on the
sweetheart.
GCM
All right, John,
Radio
fade me up.
Network. And now, live, Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
All right, Tex, it does come out that there's tons of oil. A lot of the truth does come out. It's just the general public is still convinced that summer is global warming. And I noticed the propaganda intensifies then. Continue here with what's really happening.
Well, let's look at this planet awash with oil. Here I have from Yahoo, one of the major American news sources, this claim. It says oil futures jumped to record over $115 a barrel on supply concerns. In other words, we're running low. We don't have enough. But wait. You know, the foreign press doesn't seem to want to lie as much as the American press. Maybe it's not as controlled. Here's the Times of London. Now, just as mighty a newspaper, as I was mentioning, as the New York Times or the Chicago Tribune or the Houston Chronicle, what does it say? World not running out of oil, say experts. And it begins, says, doom-laden forecast that world oil supplies are poised to fall off the edge of the cliff are wide off the mark, according to leading oil industry experts. Wow. Who would have known? Would John McCain tell us this? Would Barack Obama? Would Hillary? Would George W.? Now, here's something interesting. If we want to see that the world is awash with oil, remember what I said was it's not a matter of how much oil in the world. The world has
It's
plenty.
a delivery system.
It's a delivery system which is controlled. A contrived crisis to drive up the prices.
Well, it's like diamonds are really on the mid-scale or lower scale of even semi-precious. They're not even highly semi-precious. I mean, in Africa, they just lay around on the ground, but people fight, mortgage their house, work a year to pay for a, big rock for their wife, because that's the symbol, and literally they have giant warehouses just filled with diamonds.
Now, here's an interesting thing. Maybe people haven't heard about the oil discovery down in Brazil. But listen to this from Bloomberg.com. Bloomberg, okay? One of the top sources of financial and industry information in the world. It says Petrobras. Now, that's the petroleum company that's owned by the nation of Brazil, okay? Now, Petrobras, by the way, is a corporation as big as Microsoft, General Motors, and General Electric. It's right there in the top 5 in all of the Americas. It says Petrobras discovers world's third largest oil field. This just came out. Listen to this. This is a story that just ran April 14th. It says Petróleo Brasilia, that's Petrobras, offshore Carioca field may hold 33 million barrels of oil, enough to supply every refinery in the United States for 6 years, making it the third largest oil field ever discovered, off of Brazil in the Atlantic. Can you imagine the oil there? Petrobras? Amazing.
And the Russians are found in it. It's just everywhere. It's just...
Listen, the United States, according to the industry experts, so-called, claim that we have 29 billion barrels in reserve. Hey, they've got 33 billion down there in Brazil. Forget about Hugo Chavez and Venezuela. I'm talking about Brazil. Did you know that the Brazilian stock market went wild with this? The telephone companies, anything that's Brazilian went wild. I mean, it's booming right now. Why? They have oil that's going to be coming out their ears. But wait, that's not all. Look, why do you think we're in Kosovo? Again, just like why we're in Iraq. Look at this news item. Large potential Albanian, that's right there in the Kosovo area, oil and gas discovery underscores Kosovo's importance.
One reason that I read 10 years ago that they staged the invasion was because they found oil, uranium, silver, nickel.
There it is.
Oh.
There is a confirmation.
Al-Qaeda helped again to take over the country.
Now let's look at the United States itself, okay? Oh, well, we have to get 60% of our oil from foreign sources. Really? Well, look at this. The Bakken Oil Formation. Welcome to the next oil boom. The U.S. Geological Survey has just published its official results of a groundbreaking study. Up in North Dakota, who would have believed it? South of North Dakota and Montana, they have found a store of oil that could last America, could take care of all of our oil needs for 1,000 years in South and North Dakota.
Final segment with Texe Marrs, then Michael Hoffman coming up. We're going to take this break and then be right back. We're doing behind-the-scenes interviews. If you're an Infowars.com internet stream listener or PrisonPlanet.tv viewer, we'll be right back.
Few of the hundreds of powerful documentary films and books available at truthnews.us and prisonplanet.com. When you visit prisonplanet.com, you can connect to our amazing online store. Whether you're looking for survival and wellness products like Berkey water filters, or you would like a book on the history of the Federal Reserve, we've got the most well-researched and documented titles, all available at prisonplanet.com. Or if you'd like, you can give the InfoWars store a call at 888-253-3139. Or you can view more than 1,000 titles in super high quality right now at prisonplanet.tv. Knowledge is power, and the information you need to effectively wake up your fellow man and fight the New World Order is available right now at truthnews.us and prisonplanet.tv. Join the InfoWar today.
I don't mind that I'm getting older, but my wrinkles made me too nervous to smile. It was those fine lines that formed around my cheeks and mouth, and those crow's feet over by my eyes. People were starting to think I looked unhappy, but really I was just embarrassed by those wrinkles. Then I heard about a product called Tautanol. Tautanol is a serum that goes directly on the skin to support collagen and reduce the appearance of wrinkles. And it works. I'm not afraid to smile anymore. Now it's your turn. Today you can get a full bottle of Tautanol. You don't need a prescription, and you don't need surgery to reduce the appearance of those wrinkles. See what Tautanol can do for you and your confidence. It sure gave me something to smile about.
For your risk-free bottle of Tautanol, call 1-800-457-9914. That's 1-800-457-9914. Tautanol is the non-invasive way to reduce the appearance of wrinkles. Guaranteed. Call 1-800-457-9914. That's 1-800-457-9914.
Hemp, the superfood for you and your family. Hemp has nutritional values that far exceed any known